What's up? It's Day to Day, the waviest producer you know, coming back with another beat walkthrough tutorial for my new beat Elysium out on YouTube now. If you want to check out the full beat, be sure to go to my YouTube channel by typing in prod by Day Today, clicking on my channel, clicking subscribe, and turning on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my new videos. And without further ado, let's get into the beat.
What do we do day to day?
Let's take a look at our first melody. Here we have our strings. I decided to start off with some strings for that big cinematic effect. You can see the pattern here. The first chord goes like this. Second chord. And you can see this little note I added here. Kinda sounds weird, but it just adds a little tension to the beat. And here we end off the chords here. All together, it should sound like this. As far as processing goes, not too much is being done, but a lot of work is being done by one plugin, and that's this Murder Melodies plugin. You can see we had a little saturation, a lot of reverb, some clarity and ensemble, and this little delay knob just to give it some rhythm, and we pitched it down 7 semitones. Next we added a little overdrive just to give it some push. No real automation there, and we added this gross beat to the front of the melody. It was just a 1/4 beat gate. You can hear this at the beginning of the melody when you play the beat. I'm not really going to get too deep into it, it's a minute detail, but it was pretty cool to add anyway. Next, we'll get into our second instrument, the bells. With this pattern here, it was pretty simple. We just wanted to add some variation to the beat. We can see this first pattern and the second pattern look exactly the same except for one note. Here's how it sounds. I'm missing the notes, but don't mind me. So pretty simple, nothing too major. Here's how it sounds. Like I said, pretty simple melody, and sometimes with these beats, less is more. The plugins for this one was pretty simple too. We started off with this Valhalla delay. We first turned the mix down and then had a little delay on the timing, some feedback coming off, and just a little depth coming off too. Then some overdrive just to put it more present in the mix with a tiny filter on top. And then we cut out all the lows on the sound and just push the highs down a little bit to make it sound like this. Yeah, pretty simple. Moving on to our third melody in the beat, we have the tubular bell. The tubular bell was just added to add some contrast to the beat. This acted as a nice counter melody. As you can see, I did a little trick by stuttering the notes and playing with the volume to create this crescendo effect with these two notes for the sounds. And then 2 more added to later on in the melody. The same thing was repeated on the other half of the 8 bars, and you'll hear with the sound, it pushes into the note. Pretty simple pattern. Details like this aren't really heard too much, but in the long run they make a big difference in keeping the beat interesting. With the plugins, we just took off the low ends and the highs to make this sound. And then we added some chorus and then 2 wave shapers because the sound was a little bit low, so I wanted to boost it up a little bit, which allowed for it to push through the mix more. Moving on to the fourth and final melody of the beat, which is my favorite part of the beat, which is actually this choir. These notes are pretty simple and they sound like this. And the pattern all together. In my opinion, this is what gives the beat that big cinematic Elysium feeling. The plugins are simple. We started off by cutting the highs and lows of the melody to sound like this. Then we moved on to a little bit of saturation, just to give it a little bit more push of the sound, turn the mix down a tad bit, and then a wave shaper just to put it more present in the mix in the end. Now let's get into the drums. We're going to start off with the clap. The clap pattern was pretty standard, a couple minute details to keep things interesting. Here's how it sounds. And this stutter effect was made too. And here's how it sounds all together. Same thing repeated on the other half. The only plugin I added was this EQ to take out some of the lows, and a little boost here to just give the clap a little more crispness. We'll move on to the snare next. The pattern was pretty simple, but it added some bounce. Here's how it sounds. And this is the pattern. You can see another stutter effect here. We did some really quick processing on the snare by just adding this distortion plugin to put some punch on the high end, and then this EQ cutting in the lows and a little bit of a boost. Moving on to the hi-hats with this sound. Simple two-step pattern with a little variation. The hi-hat was already sounding pretty good, so I just added this EQ to cut out the lows and then a slight boost on the high end. We also added this second hi-hat pattern, which is for the verse of the beat. You can see it has a lot more stutters and breaks in between. So we added this first one for the chorus. And so just this variation creates a little change up in the song so that the artist has room to say a lot more lyrics and find a new flow on top of the beat. Here's how it sounds. Both the hi-hats for the chorus and the verse were routed to the same plugin, so no difference there. Moving on to the open hat in the beat, we have this sound, and this is the pattern for it. We actually had a little bit more of a production in the open hat. We wanted to get a specific sound, so I added some fruity distortion, a wave shaper to push up the sound, and this EQ to cut off the lows, and just a little slight dip in the highs. Moving on to this stick, this really was just for ear candy and a little bit of rhythm. Here's how it sounds, and this is the pattern. Just to keep something interesting going. A little bit of a fruity distortion and the EQ to cut off the lows, slight boost in the area, and a couple dips off the highs too. Moving on finally to this last perk we add in the background, just a stick. A lot of these sounds are just to add background rhythm, just to keep the beat interesting. And there's no real plugins on that, pretty basic sound. And then for the part we've been waiting for, the 808. Here's the sound. And you can see I added some very minute details. These type of things just add a little push to the 808 or a reverse effect so that the 808 kind of sounds different when it's hitting in the melody. Here's how it sounds. I'm not gonna lie, you are lying to yourself if you don't think that 808 pattern is hard. As for the plugins on the 808, we just added a fruity overdrive just to give it a little bit more punch, and it kind of boosts the low end too. And then this EQ just to cut off the highs, and this slight one over here just to get rid of that muddiness in the 808. So we can turn on all the drums now and we can hear them all together at once. A lot of these drums are just background and ear candy. This keeps variation going in the beat, keeps the listener entertained, and still allows the artist space to rap. Here's how they sound. So I might have lied. We're going to talk about this intro just because it's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a little automation on the gross beat plugin that I put in earlier just to give this tremolo effect to the melody. Just to show you again, we can see in the gross beat, we have this 1/4 gate happening, which adds a little stutter tremolo effect to the intro. Without it, the intro sounds like this. So as you can hear, it has like that tremolo stuttering effect. And here's how it sounds with the automation.
What do we do day to day?
Adding small little details and subtleties like this is what's going to make your beats a lot more unique, so be sure to always experiment with things. All things combined, and this is the finished beat.
What do we do day to day?
If you like this beat walkthrough tutorial or you learned something new, please be sure to like the video and subscribe. Follow me on all social media and check out this full beat on YouTube now. See y'all later.